One thing I've been trying to emphasize for years in talking to you is that when there's an opportunity for a second residence program or a second citizenship program and you like that program, jump on it, because these opportunities almost never last forever. They go up in price, they change the terms, they become more difficult, more bureaucratic, more restrictive, or they simply go away entirely. Today, I'm going to share with you 3 good residence programs that may be going away this year. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson, and here at Nomad Capitalist, we've taken my over dozen years of living and traveling all over the world, building a network, building a team of almost 30 people to help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs legally go where they're treated best, keep more of their own money, and build their freedom overseas with their own plan B. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. And today I'm going to talk about 3 residence programs that may be on the brink. Let's start with what we know. The first residence program is in the Philippines, the SRRV, or the Special Retirement Visa. This is a program in our YouTube video where we talked about 12 residences you can get just by depositing money in the bank. I mentioned this, and literally days later, after we filmed the video, they decided to suspend the program. Here's why, according to the government. Now, this retirement visa program allowed anyone aged 35 or older to go and put anywhere from $50,000 down to as little as $1,500, depending on medical conditions and all sorts of different factors, in a bank account in the Philippines. That's not a lot of money, quite frankly, and the actual costs for doing this were actually pretty low, right? So $50,000 in the bank, if you have it, you move it from one bank to another bank. And again, for some people, the amount to deposit was even lower. You pay some fees, and you don't even have to live in the Philippines once you get the permit. So you had a nice call option. If you wanted to live there, you could full-time. If you wanted to pop in, or if you just wanted to keep it in your back pocket long-term, that was an option. And so I remember I've been going to the Philippines for 7 or 8 years now. I remember thinking, one day I'm going to turn 35 and I'm going to get that SRRV, and I did. Soon after I turned 35 in 2019, a pandemic erupted, and I decided to stay in Malaysia for much of 2020. I did not go to the Philippines to set up the residence permit, and now they're saying people like me shouldn't be able to go there, because the idea is that a lot of the people going, particularly in the 35 to 49 age group, are Chinese nationals, potentially military-age people, and also potentially people who are working in the gaming space, for example. And so the government's saying, why do we want people who are so young coming for what's supposed to be a retirement visa and potentially working and potentially doing so illegally? And taking jobs, there has been an issue with some stings where they go and they take down some of these gaming operations run by Chinese people. And so there was some involving the Vanuatu passport. Nothing against Vanuatu, but just kind of interesting things that have been in the news in our industry. And so what's happening right now is the Philippines government, the tourism agency, is revisiting the program. It's always interesting when governments say that. I do certainly think the Philippines wants to keep legitimate retirees there, but I'm afraid that when this program does come back, if it indeed does, it's going to be much more restrictive. Perhaps not in terms of money, but in terms of who qualifies. And so it was a great opportunity for people who worked online, for example, or just had a business that someone else managed, like us with our team, to be able to go and just live and enjoy their life. Not work in the Philippines, but just live. And I think that may be going away, so we'll see how that program goes. Now, the second program that you may have heard about is Malaysia's My Second Home program, the MM2H program. This is one that I'm glad I participated in early. Now, what happens to these programs generally when they cancel them is they don't cancel you, right? If you're already in with a residence and they decide to stop the residence program, or if they decide to stop a citizenship by investment program. We've talked about this with the example of Comorian citizenship. The citizenship program was suspended, but if you already had a passport, as long as it was obtained legitimately, you get to keep your passport. Right? And so in the case of Malaysia, the My Second Home program was suspended in the summer of 2020 with the idea of revisiting it and improving it. And I've been talking for years, and I was starting to get a little bit embarrassed, quite frankly, because I've been saying for a couple years now that I think that the program could double in price. We actually made a video maybe a year or two ago where I said I think it will double in price. And I think that that's maybe what they're looking to do, is they're comparing it with other opportunities in the region, because it's been more difficult for people to immigrate to Singapore now. Whether you're an entrepreneur, it's more intense. If you're an investor, it's more expensive. Thailand's program next door, a lot more expensive than Malaysia's. A lot of other Southeast Asian countries, which are increasingly popular among Westerners and also among people from Northern Asian countries, they don't even have programs, right? Cambodia even, harder to get a business visa in. Now the Philippines follows suit. So Malaysia's program of putting basically $70,000, or if you're over 50, $35,000 in the bank, again, paying relatively low fees, seemed like a relative bargain, quite frankly, to have 10 years to live in Malaysia. Now, both the Philippines and Malaysia are relatively tax-friendly countries for foreigners, and so this was a great opportunity. They claim it's coming back in December 2020. I certainly know people in Malaysia, but it seems like the people in charge have been relatively tight-lipped. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what they come back with. I believe in Malaysia, and I think that they're a very foreigner-friendly country. There are other ways you can move to Malaysia by starting a business or creating a startup, moving your existing business there, hiring, what have you. There's lots of different ways to do it, but this straightforward way just to get and be able to live in Malaysia, I think was a great opportunity. They will bring it back, I believe, but I think it may be at a higher price. And so if you wanted to get in later, it'll be at a higher price. Now, the third program is one that you may not have heard about, and nothing's been formally discussed, but there are rumors that Panama's Friendly Nations visa program may also be either canceled or changed. And so, again, if you're watching this later after we film it, there certainly may be updates to these. But Panama's Friendly Nations visa basically allowed a simple economic tie from forming a company to having some kind of interest in property or forestry, as well as $5,000 in the bank and a couple extra bucks for any dependents that you have, spouse, children, etc. So that's a relative bargain to go and get a permanent residence in a pretty stable, tax-friendly country. Now, not everyone was eligible for this. And so you had to be a citizen of about 50 different countries. Italy has always had their own program, so they were not part of this, but they also had pretty good treatment, as I recall. This may be going away, because when you compare that to the program that everyone else has to participate in, let's say that you are a U.S. citizen and you give up your citizenship, and now you are St. Lucian or Dominican or whatever other Caribbean citizenship, or your Ni Vanuatu, whatever. Those programs, those citizenship by investment programs, are generally not friendly nations in Panama, and so your permanent residence path would be a bank deposit not of $5,000, but of as much as $300,000. Now that could be in bank, it could be in real estate, a combination thereof. You could invest a lesser amount in forestry. Panama's always had so many different programs, and that's what makes this fascinating to me. All three of these countries are welcoming to foreigners. This is not Hungary saying, we're sick of foreigners, keep them all out, we hate everybody. These are three very open countries that have always wanted immigration. They've always wanted people to come. They've always wanted investment. They've been tax-friendly. And now Panama is saying, this has not been formally announced as I sit here, but they're thinking to themselves, so goes the rumor mill, that why are we letting people in for so little? Now, is it possible that some of the larger players in the region or larger players in the world have some kind of role in a decision like Panama, which certainly has been under some pressure financially due to things like the Panama Papers? Is there a role in saying, don't make it so easy for people to go there? Perhaps. We could certainly get into any of the quote-unquote conspiracies and think what may be relevant there. But here's what I do know. Whatever the reason, the Asian countries are particularly complaining against an influx of too many mainland Chinese, which I'm not sure why entirely that becomes an issue now, considering that mainland Chinese have been some of the biggest applicants to many of these programs for a long time. But that's been one thing cited. I also think that countries are just going to go and raise their prices because they realize more people are interested in this. And so here's why I've told you. And I made a YouTube video about this not too long ago where I said, I keep getting second residences. I keep getting bank accounts. I will keep getting the occasional passport. It has to make sense. It has to fit into the story. It has to serve me in some way. I'm not going to get, an Israeli citizenship and then go become a citizen of an Arab country. I'm not going to do something weird like that. But I believe in continuing to expand your options because you never know where you're going to want to be. For me, I've been doing this for a long time, and I still like the idea of being able to be in Asia part of the year and then saying, you know what, I've had enough, I'm going to Europe. But if you're relying on, hey, that option that I want in Europe will always be available, I'll just wait for it. I hear that a lot from people. You know what, let's wait on that. In our business, we call it phase 2. We'll do that in 6 months, we'll do it in a year. And I realize that not everyone will even do those things that we've discussed in 6 months because they just don't see sometimes why it's important. These programs being suspended, potentially closed, potentially going up in price, to me is the reason why if there's a program you like, you just do it. You don't wait. Because again, once you're in, generally you can stay in. Not 100% of the time, but often, more often than not, whether it's a bank account that you open with a tiny amount of money and then they raise it or they close it to non-residents, whatever the case may be, more options for diversification are never a bad idea, especially when all you have to do is show your income or put $5,000 or $20,000 or $50,000 in the bank. This is nothing. This is just, get something going and have as many options as possible, especially if you don't have to live there or use the bank, use the permit, use the citizenship in some way to keep it active. Have more of these options. This is the reason why these 3 programs show why having options when you can is so important. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.